Hello and welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala. I am Anushri Nagpal from the Department of Geography, Jamia Millia Islamia. In this episode, we will learn about mass wasting, which comes under the paper Geomorphology. Learning objectives of this particular module are: number 1, mass wasting, its concept and mechanics; second, factor controlling mass wasting; third, types of mass wasting; fourth, preventing loss due to mass wasting. Mass wasting, concept and mechanics. The surface of the earth is everywhere attacked by forces that lead to decomposition and disintegration of rocks. The layer of waste this produced is called regolith. It is unconsolidated matter and a mixture of rock pieces and fine soil. Lying on a sloping surface, regolith is pulled by the earth's gravitational force and moves down. This downslope movement of weathered material under the influence of gravitational influence is defined as mass wasting, also termed as mass movement. Sometimes mass wasting may also involve intact rock beds. According to A. Goody, a mass movement is the downward and outward movement of slope forming material under the influence of gravity. To this definition, Encyclopedia Britannica adds, the rapid or gradual sinking of Earth's ground surface in a predominantly vertical direction. The process has a variety of rates and mechanics of movement, involves particles ranging from minute fine clay to massive rock beds, leads to impact ranging from insignificant events to larger scale disasters, and results in creation of various landforms. According to W.D. Thornbury, the importance of mass wasting as a process of creating surface features was realized much later. R.P. Sharp in 1938 was the first to pay serious attention to mass wasting processes, conditions and types. Mechanics of mass wasting. The process of mass wasting and the all other details related to it can be understood if we look at the interplay of different forces acting on weathered mass sitting on a sloped surface. Basically, it is gravity which is analyzed into two main components that together control movement of regolith on all slopes, like has been shown in figure 1.1. These are: number 1, slide component, also called stress; number 2, stick component, also called friction or shear resistance. Slide component works in the downslope direction and pulls the rock mass towards foot of a slope. This leads to stress or tension between the solid unweathered rock surface and the unconsolidated regolith lying on it. It also exerts stress along bedding planes, joints, crevices and fractures within a solid rock body. Even the mineral grains within a rock respond to this stress, and internal stress is experienced by the matter. Stick component works in a direction perpendicular to the slope and creates friction between regolith and slope and at all the other sites that are under stress mentioned above. The friction created by stick component counteracts the downward pull. Whether a mass would move or not is decided by the critical balance between these forces, which in turn depends primarily on the steepness of a slope. On a slope measuring 30 degrees, if gravity exerts force equal to 1 kg on a mass, the two components may be calculated as: number 1, slide component would show force equal to 0.5 kg and stick component is 0.85 kg. Here, frictional force opposing motion is stronger, hence it will neutralize the weaker slide force and the mass will not move. In contrast, if the slope is steeper, such as 60 degrees, then mass movement would happen because in this case, stress will have stronger force which is directed to the direction of movement, which is shown in figure 2. Thus, chances of slope failure may be calculated using the following equations, where Fs stands for factor of safety. Factor of safety is equal to shear resistance divided by magnitude of stress. If the value of factor of stress is 1 or more, it indicates that gravity will not be able to move rock debris unless some other factor supports it. If factor of stress has a value less than 1, it indicates that slope is vulnerable to mass wasting. Besides many other factors, the balance between stress and shear resistance depends largely on steepness of slope. The rate and nature of the final movement may be influenced by several other factors that play an important role in the mass wasting process. Modes of movement in mass wasting. Once a mass of regolith is displaced by gravity, the weathered material may allow different modes of movement downhill, which has been shown in figure 3. M.A. Carson and M.J. Kirkby consider 3 of them most important. First, slide, second, flow, and third, heave. Slide. In slide movement, motion is maximized along the base of the moving mass. There is a clear and easy way to identify surface dividing the mobile upper layer and the intact stable lower zone. This separating plane is usually called the shear plane. Usually the top of the mobile surface is able to keep pace with the rate of motion along the base, but sometimes it may lag behind. Slide can take place in absolutely dry matter, hence it can happen anywhere. However, presence of water facilitates it and induces greater speed flow. In flow mode, material above the shear plane accelerates to the maximum speed at the top, while rate of movement diminishes with increasing depth till it reaches 0 along the shear plane. This differential rate of movement within a mass is caused by increasing friction towards the contact zone between regolith and stable rock surface. In this mode, water is an essential component of the process. As such, it is a feature of humid regions. Second, heave. This type of mechanism can move at any particle size from a fine clay grain to a larger boulder. The rate is mostly very slow and actual movement imperceptible unless it is measured using sophisticated methods. The ultimate result of change in position of matter can be seen and is taken as evidence of mass wasting activity. In this mode of movement, regolith alternatively experiences swelling or expansion and shrinking or contraction. Expansion may be a result of moisture absorption, heating, or ice crystal formation. As water changes into ice, there is about 10% increase in volume of moisture within regolith, causing an upward push. Contraction happens when a moist particle dries up, hot surface cools off, or ice crystals melt and convert into liquid. During these expansion-contraction cycles, particles rise upward perpendicularly to the original surface as they expand and settle down vertically while contraction compels downward movement. Thus, in figure 3, a particle originally at point 1 would gradually shift to 2 till it reaches point 7 at the foot of the slope. Besides these 3 modes, sub-varieties of mass wasting may be induced by factors like shape of shear plane and presence of vegetation or boulder obstruction. Examples involving curved and rectilinear shear planes may be given here. Rock debris moving on curvilinear shear plane show a tendency of difference in velocities at their base and top. Mostly speed increases with depth, like has been shown in figure 4 and 5. The resulting mass wasting has a characteristic backward rotation. On the other hand, a rectilinear shear plane exhibits equal rate of movement throughout the mass, which is shown in figure 6. Let us now learn about the factors controlling mass wasting. There are several natural and anthropogenic factors that regulate initiation, rate, and type of mass wasting. Different views have been expressed in this regard. For example, Sharp groups the controlling factors into passive and active. Causes of mass wasting. Passive causes. Types of factors. Lithogenic, which include unconsolidated, weak, slippery material. Stratigraphic, which include thin, bedded alternation of weak and strong rocks. Structural, dense joints, faults, steeply dipping beds. Topographic, including vertical or steep slopes. Climatic, which include large annual and diurnal temperature ranges. Freeze-thaw cycles, heavy rains, and finally we have organic, which is scarcity of vegetation. Active causes. Number 1, removal of support human action or erosion at the base of slope. Number 2, over-steepening of slope such as redistribution of soil by surface runoff. Number 3, overloading of regolith, addition of snow, ice or water, or man-made structures on slopes. This classification focuses mostly on inherent characteristics of regolith and its environment. Others, like D.J. Vance in 1978, have classified causes of mass wasting with a focus on the forces working on weathered material. From this viewpoint, on the one hand, there are forces that enhance the pulling effect of gravity or the slide component. On the other hand, are conditions that play a negative role with reference to the stick component and weaken stability of matter. When a strong slide force combines with a weak stick force, ideal conditions for mass wasting are created. The two categories of forces are controlled by several supporting factors. Number 1, factors that increase stress, and number 2, factors that reduce shear strength. Factors affecting stress and shear strength component. Factors that increase shear strength. Removal of lateral or underlying support, erosion by waves or rivers, digging for road construction, surcharge, increase in load by rainfall, snowfall, water from urban drainage, transitory earth stress including earthquake, vibration due to traffic. Next is lateral pressure, water in cracks, freezing of this water, swelling of wet clay particles. Factors that reduce shear strength. Weathering, moisture, swelling of clay, minerals and loss of cohesion, removal of soluble cementing minerals out of the rock, change in intergrain forces, excess water causing buoyancy and loss of friction, softening of material, changes in structure, fissures developed in shale, organic, decay of roots, burrowing animals. It is clear from the above that interaction between several factors leads to conditions favoring slope failure. Broadly speaking, on the one hand, regolith has some inherent favorable qualities. It becomes heavy, slippery, non-cohesive and ready to move, while on the other hand, some external factors play a vital role, such as if foothill area supporting upper slope and stabilizing it is removed, or violent tremors destroy the shear strength and dislodge weathered material from the slope. Both the categories of such factors lead to the same result, that is, gravity succeeds in pulling down the weathered surface layer. Two or more conditions may combine in some cases and cause mass wasting of exceptional intensity. For example, the April 2015 Nepal earthquake triggered several incidents of mass wasting in the area. Village Langtang suffered from a 2 to 3 kilometer wide avalanche. The Trishuli River valley of Nepal witnessed several landslides. Classification of mass wasting. Different classifications of mass wasting have been suggested, founded on different bases. Arthur Bloom discusses a descriptive classification of mass movement. Mode of movement and nature of weathered and material involved are the basis of his classification. Another classification of mass wasting is suggested by Carson and Kirkby. Their classification takes into account moisture conditions along with the rate and mechanics of movement of weathered matter. This has been shown in figure 7. The following three mechanisms of movement are the primary basis of this classification of mass wasting. Number 1, heave, number 2, flow, and number 3, slide. In this classification, the three basic categories replace one another as climatic conditions change from the extreme dry to extreme wet moisture regimes. Ultimately, mass wasting is replaced by fluvial processes in warm regions or glacial processes in cold regions. Particle size involved ranges here from soil to talus to rocks. Depending on availability of moisture and nature of regolith, subtypes acquire specific characteristics and are identified as several separate classes of mass wasting. Thus, the three basic mechanisms lead to several subtypes of processes shown in figure 7 and 8. Types of mass wasting. Number 1, solifluction. It can be translated as soil flow. As the name indicates, it is a subtype of flow movement. In this type, surface is covered with water saturated regolith. As water content increases, soil cover changes to a soggy matter and loses cohesive strength. This weakens friction or stick component, enabling gravity to move the weathered layer on the slope. Presence of an impervious subsurface layer and ample soil moisture are vital for this process. It can happen both in warm and cool climatic conditions. In warm conditions, moisture is provided by precipitation or surface runoff. Here, the subsurface impervious layer may be a bed of slate or schist or any other such hard rock. In cold regions, water is supplied as meltwater during spring season when all surface snow and ice starts to melt. The impervious subsurface layer here is the vast, deep, frozen ground that is called the permafrost that neither warms up nor thaws. To differentiate processes in these two climatic regimes, A. L. Washburn in 1967 suggested usage of gelifluction for the processes in cold climatic regions. A. L. Bloom also uses this term in his literature. Solifluction or gelifluction. It is a slow process as compared to the other types. Mostly it covers extensive areas. The whole of Siberian tundra and Greenland hillsides are in evidence of its regional scale. Ground influenced by this type or mass wasting is broken into gently sloping terrace-like features which are sometimes bound by vegetative growth, which is shown in figure 9. Soil creep. This type of mass wasting is present almost everywhere on the Earth's surface because first, it requires minimal support from the steepness of surface, and second, it can involve any type of debris. Third, it also does not need moisture, hence can happen in all types of climates. It follows mechanics of heave, which is shown in figure 3. Areas experiencing soil creep show the several symptoms that are easy to identify. Trees with downward bending lower trunks, tilt in exposed rock beds, broken fences and tilted electricity poles are some examples. In mountainous areas, heaps of weathered matter collects at the base of slopes as talus and scree cones due to soil creep, shown in figure 10. In these cones, the frontal margins migrate forward as soil creep continues and cones keep growing in size. Similar to soil creep is rock creep, which involves larger boulders and rock chunks. Third is mud flow and earth flow. The mechanics of earth flow and mud flow are similar to any other flow type of mass weathering. However, both have certain distinguishing features. Mud flow is large-scale, channelized movement, while earth flow may happen on any surface in a localized manner. Mud flow is confined to valleys and is a rapid movement. Arid regions have the most ideal condition for it. Here, seasonal streams cut valleys in mountainous areas. For most of the year or sometimes for several years, the valleys stay dry and receive large amount of weathered debris from slopes. When eventually rains come, they are usually torrential and last for a short while, a general characteristic of precipitation in hot arid areas. As water is channelized and moves down the valleys, it keeps on incorporating accumulated rock debris from the valley floor. Absence of vegetative cover in these regions further supports this process. This mass has great velocity, erosive and transporting capacity. Movement stops under two conditions only. Number 1, the matter becomes thick in consistency and is no longer fluid, and 2, flow reaches flat foothills area. At the terminal point, all material brought down is left as a mound or in a fan-shaped feature called alluvial fan. Elliot Blackwelder in 1928 considered mud flow an important geomorphic agent in arid and semi-arid regions. He explained long-distance transportation of huge rocks in these regions as the work of mud flow. Fourth, slide and slump. Both these types follow slide mechanics and their rate of movement is fast, which has been shown in figures 7 and 8. For initial movement, presence of water or ice as lubricant is not needed but rate of movement accelerates if regolith is wet. The distinction between these two is marked by difference in their shear planes. Slide has a rectilinear shear plane like shown in figure 6, while slump has a concave upward or spoon-shaped shear plane. Slide is again classified according to nature of weathered material. Debris slide, rock slide, mudslide and landslide are some examples. Landslide is the most devastating, sudden and rapid slide movement shown in figure 12. It is capable of transporting and burying settlements and destroying the ecosystem for the long time. It happens on slopes that have a combination of all positive stress and negative resistance factors, but the actual movement begins when it is triggered by some sudden change like heavy rain or earthquake. Mountains experience most landslides during rainy seasons. Rainwater increases weight of regolith and is also lubricate. In cold regions, snow plays an important role. Sometimes frozen rock mass may begin to slide, but as the heat of friction melts ice, crystals and water content increases, the movement transforms into flow type. Concavity of shear plane in slump results in backward tilt of slumping blocks, shown in figure 5 and 13. The mass also breaks down in blocks and creates a terraced surface, shown in figure 14. The foot of the slope has a mound called toe. The area from where the movement has started is marked by a steep scar, shown in figure 13. Fifth, debris fall and rock fall. Velocity in fall type ranks highest among all mass wasting types. Movement in fall types is vertical or almost vertical, and long cliff faces are an ideal site for it. The motion may start as slide, but may change to topple and terminate as well. Slopes that have experienced glaciation are susceptible to rock falls because unloading and frost action separate large blocks from the main slope. Later, these blocks may be shaken off by triggers like earthquake tremors. Falling rock pieces pose danger to lower slopes, especially transport links and settlements. To manage this risk, rocks have been covered by steel net along the Sion-Panvel highway, like shown in figure 15. Sixth, subsidence. This type of mass wasting does not involve a shear plane or horizontal displacement. Surface layers move almost vertically downwards when they lose support from beneath. Subsurface weakness may be caused by several factors, for example, mining, excess withdrawal of underground water, removal of rocks by carbonation in karst regions, removal of subsurface fluid lava, other types. Besides above mentioned types of mass wasting, there are other examples with minor variations in characteristics. Some of these are: number 1, avalanche. Any sudden and disastrous landslide may cause avalanche. It is a phenomena of humid regions. It involves weathered rock mass that may have ice, both slide and flow mechanics, and rapid movement. If a slope experiences repeated debris avalanche, clear channels are cut called debris chute. Next, rock glide and topple. Large rock blocks are moved if the surface beneath them is lubricated or is softened to move plastically. The surface rock blocks simply ride over the mobile underlying material. Destabilized while gliding, these blocks tend to fall, called toppling. Next, spreading. This involves multiple blocks. The mechanism of this movement is similar to rock glide, but is a lateral movement. Cambering is an example of this type. Cambering takes place in glacial environments where sediments moves from hillsides towards valleys and carries along sedimentary blocks. D. Liquefaction. Solid surface like sand and clay is shaken during earthquake tremors and grain compaction within rock is loosened. This allows clay-rich rocks to behave like plastic matter because a typical spread movement known as liquefaction. It can uproot buildings from their foundations and move them. Preventing loss due to mass wasting. Owing to its vast reach and damaging effects, mass wasting forms an important part of geomorphology, especially applied geomorphology. To prevent social and economic losses, methods have been developed to observe and collect data on sites that are threatened by immediate movement. A world map of landslide susceptibility has been prepared by the help of satellite images of soil, slope and deforested areas, which has been shown in figure 16. This is connected to a satellite-aided global network program called Nowcast, which is proposed to identify and warn of imminent landslides. Other local level methods are also developed. For example, SlideMinder is a wireline extensiometer that can monitor slope displacement and transmit data remotely via radio or Wi-Fi, like has been shown in figure 18. Conclusion: the surface of the earth is constantly impacted by forces whose action levels it down. Mass wasting is one of them. It is important because it works in all climatic regions, on all types of slopes and all surfaces. Gravitation of the earth is the sole force controlling all mass wasting incidents. However, temperature oscillations, freeze-thaw cycles and moisture in form of rain or snow support this process in many ways. Different types of mass wasting are grouped into categories on the basis of how a weathered mass moves. Slide, flow and heave are identified as three basic mechanisms. These three modes further have several subgroups, mainly on the basis of nature of regolith involved and rates of mass movement. Each type has a role in formation of some or the other landform, including general lowering or of surface. The process of mass wasting is vitally important for us because it destabilizes the surface on which man performs all his actions. Methods to measure vulnerability of areas and means to predict or prevent a mass movement are developed and employed to safeguard against calamities. Thank you.